Well, folks, this is Rick Moore, co-founder of BidPoint, and obviously our alliance with Avion Energy is great, and the reason we've got such a powerful opportunity, I've got the CEO and see several other things at Avion Energy, Mr. Jim Sharon. I call him the Minister of Energy, which lends people to believe he's the guy that knows the most about it, and he happens to be that guy. So we're excited to have him on the call today and go through the process of submissions to Avion Energy for the BidPoint agents out there in the field. So Jim, are you out there? Can you hear me well?
I can hear you. Yes, Rick. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and loud and clear here as well. I want to mention, guys, Jim's obviously been an integral part and around since the beginning of Avion Energy, some 7 years ago, but also he's the CEO of Avion Energy at this point, but certainly has plenty of relevant hands-on experience in all the processes of acquiring energy clients and customers. He's been a rep himself and understands all aspects of the process, and he's also the person whose brainchild is the Direct Connect portal, which makes it possible for us to actually shop all the many suppliers we currently have. Certainly as many or more than anyone else that's doing brokerage in the United States of America, I think is a fair statement. And so what I want to do at this point in time is start the process with Mr. Jim Sharon. He's going to review the documents that you'll find at bidpoint.net in the back office. If you go to the top right-hand portion of your back office, you'll see pricing documents, and that's specifically what we're going to cover here today. So, Jim, I want to pass the call over to you and introduce you to everybody out here at BidPoint, and appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, Rick, thank you, and appreciate the introduction. I do think that's a really important point that you made. While it is true, after 7 years, I'm the CEO, and I giggle inside whenever you call me the Minister of Energy. And the industry is rather complex, and there is a lot to know. But I want to make sure that those sales guys out there working out on the street, talking to clients, potential clients, that you don't think that you have to know everything to get started. I started without knowing anything at all, and literally sat in meeting rooms with clients asking me questions. I had absolutely no idea what they were asking. But you kind of learn. You go within with confidence, knowing that we can provide a great service. What Avion does is unmatched in the industry. So know that, and just be prepared to have a lot of fun building your personal book of business. But let's jump in today. We'll drill down into some of those other things and maybe how to have those meetings with people that you don't know what you're talking about later on. We've put some things together for you to equip you to be able to go out and build a book of business without a lot of extra work. We're doing all the heavy lifting on our end. The first document that we want to talk about is listed in the back office as a request for pricing document. Now, this was designed for your specific use. It's not something you have to give the client to fill out or anything like that. It's kind of a cheat sheet that you're going to have when you pick up the phone to call someone, or if you're going for a personal one-on-one visit, you go in with your leather portfolio, you're sitting across the desk from them, you open it up, and this is the information that you need to gather. It's all there on one single page. Some real simple things: the company name, address, website, all that, the contact info of the person you're talking to, their position, email address, phone numbers, fax numbers, any and all of that sort of stuff you can gather. Just allows you to do a great job of communicating with the client. The entity information, it's really important to get the doing business as name. That's probably the sign out in front of their business. But then the next line down, it asks for the legal entity name. That's the name that is registered with the Secretary of State, and that's the name that they'll eventually put on a contract with an energy supplier. So gather that up now while you're sitting in front of the client or talking to him on the phone. Also ask them, who's authorized to sign a contract when we get to the place of presenting best pricing and you want to take advantage of it, who's the person that's going to sign? And while you're at it, get their federal identification number, an FEIN, or sometimes referred to as an EIN. It's an employee identification number. That'll be used by the energy suppliers for, in some cases, credit checks, also to be able to identify your company as the company that they're contracting, not a company with a similar name across town. So you want to make sure to get that as well. That way they're certain who they're dealing with. Billing address, of course, that's important as well. And then at the very bottom of that page, the request for pricing options. We need to know in our office, are we getting price quotes for electricity or natural gas? So there's just a little check-off box, makes it easy for you. But the next one is really important, and is the client currently under contract? And this is one I want to stress to you. We don't want you to guess at this. It's really important because the consumer, your client, if they're under contract, they may not remember if they are. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But if they don't know and they're in a contract and they sign another contract, well, what happens when they enter a contract, just very briefly today without drilling down into a whole lot of detail and doing a seminar on that right now, but the only way an energy supplier can quote a fixed rate contract is if they go out and buy a whole year's worth or 2 or 3 years, whatever the contract term is. They buy a year's worth of natural gas or electricity right now today. So they spend their money to go do that. And the client gets to use that electricity over the next 12 months and pay for it as they use it. And if they're under a contract, they enter into the second contract. Well, the second supplier goes out and buys electricity all over again. Well, both of those suppliers are going to want the client to pay for it. And as you might guess, they're only using one set of electrons that come across the wire. So the energy suppliers have to solve this by selling the energy they bought back out into the marketplace, and it's a long, involved process. So we don't want to get the client in trouble. Find out if they're under contract, and the best way to determine that, have the client pick up the phone. On the billing statement, there is a phone number. Now, unfortunately, you can't do this for the client because they're going to ask a couple of questions to find out if you're a representative of the company, and it's probably questions only the company will know. So the owner, the business person, picks up the phone, dials that number, and simply just asks the energy supplier that's listed on the billing statement, hey, I'm just checking today to see if I'm under contract, and if so, I need to know the date that contract expires. So we don't necessarily want a month. We want the specific date because we'll go ahead and get the next energy contract to start on the very next day after their current contract expires. So that's an important question, probably the most important one on there. Well, the second, probably the most important. The second most important is at the very bottom is putting your name, your phone number, and your email so we can communicate with you about this deal as it progresses through the whole process. And it's that simple. It's just a real simple document. Look at that document. You got questions, get in touch with Rick or your upline or someone that can assist you with that. The next document we're going to talk about today is the LOA, a letter of authorization. Now, one of the things I'm wanting to do as we go through this is not only tell you what to fill in the blanks, but the reasons why. Why is this document important? What is it used for? Well, if energy suppliers are sharpening their pencil and giving us custom pricing, they're really wanting to win this deal, and they know I'm putting their names, their prices right alongside their competitors on a single sheet of paper when I present it to the client. It's an apple-to-apples comparison. The only hope, though, they have of winning the business is to have the best price. So it creates this intense competition, and they're wanting to sharpen their pencil everywhere they can. Well, in order to do that, they need to know how much energy is the customer using and when do they use it. So we're going to need to request from the utility company the usage data. Now, that's all this form is. It's just simply a release document. The LOA, letter of authorization, it's just a release document that we send over to the utility company. And the utility company sees that your client signed off on the bottom, said that it's okay, release this information to Avion Energy or one of our suppliers, if that might be the case. So in filling this document out, the best thing to do is to have the client fill out or sign the portion at the very bottom. It's a box. It's shaded a little bit. It says authorization. I affirm that I have the authority to make and sign this request on behalf of the company for all the accounts that are associated with this request. That's the box that they fill out. Leave all the rest of it blank. Don't take any time to try to fill any of it in, and here's the reason why. Number one, you might have a client that has multiple locations in different utilities. Well, we've got some accounts that have 300 locations across the U.S. We don't want to go in and sit down in a stack of 300 LOAs on a client's desk and ask him to sign all 300 of them. So we will make the necessary copies and fill in the account information if we have to send this off to multiple utilities. So it just is a service for the client, make things easy for them instead of filling out a lot of paperwork. So just fill out the authorization section. We do the rest. As a matter of fact, sometimes if you look at a billing statement to try to get a meter number, an account number, there could be multiple account numbers on a billing statement. It could be a utility account number, a supplier account number, could be some special identifier number, an ESID number, and it's different everywhere in different utilities. That's why Rick thinks I'm so smart, because I know a lot of these details. I have to. Somebody has to, but you don't have to. You just have to leave that part blank, and we'll fill it in for you. So the LOA, real simple. It's a release document that we use to go ahead and get the usage data so that we can get the best pricing available for your client. Now, the next document I want to talk about, or I guess before we jump in there, we want to talk about billing statements. And the billing statement has a treasure trove of information that we need. So number one, every now and then somebody will send in like a 1 page of a 4-page billing statement. Well, you left out 3 other pages that all had information. Understand that the utility companies or the energy supply company who sends out a billing statement is not adding additional pages just because they like to use up paper. All of that has information on it, from service account numbers, the usage data. It'll also have rate class information, zones that they might be in that affect the price, all different kinds of things, the kilowatts used, the kilowatt hours used. So we need to get a full, complete copy of a billing statement. And here's the reason why that's the case. If there's missing information, the energy supplier feels that whatever's missing creates some potential additional risk. So to cover that risk, the price goes up a little bit. So whenever we can supply all the information that we could possibly supply, well, the risk just goes away and we get a better price. So you're always better off supplying everything that we need instead of trying to get a little bit and trying to get a deal in, seeing if we could put it together. It's better for the client to have it a full, complete deal presented. So that's why we want a full billing statement. Now, it's not the case everywhere, but sometimes in some geographic regions, energy suppliers use a billing statement for a credit check. And what they want to see, what they're looking for, is they're wanting to see 3 billing statements, so the 3 most recent ones, not 3 from a year ago. Obviously, that won't reflect what they're looking for. But the 3 most recent billing statements, and if there's no past due notices, cutoff notices, if they're seeing a client that pays their bill on time, well, that's, again, less risk. They're going to have a better price for that client. If they're seeing somebody that's late in paying, well, there's a little more risk, and the price could be a little higher. So that's the reason for 3 billing statements. And, you could go someplace and just gather 1, and it may be we're getting ready to close the deal, and then they're going to say, we need to see 3 billing statements, and you got to go back and get more. So I've always been of the opinion, when I was out on the street doing what you do, if I'm talking to the client or sitting in front of the client, when they go to the file cabinet to get 1 billing statement, it's just as easy for them to grab 3. It doesn't take hardly any more time to get 3 as it does 1. And so I always just ask for 3, even though lots of times I didn't need 3, but I always asked for 3. They always gave me 3 just as easy as they would give me 1. So that's why I just made a habit of doing that. And I think it'll serve you well to do that as you go about building your book of business too. So send those in. Now, as you're preparing to email this information in, you want to scan it, and you want to scan it as a PDF, not as a picture file, a JPEG or a PNG or any number of picture type file formats that are available out there. And the reason for that is some energy suppliers won't accept a JPEG file. They need it to be a PDF file. Some utility companies, when we send off the LOA, they need it to be a PDF. And so they'll send it back to us. So when you scan something, on your scanner at home or in your office, it gives you the option to pick the file type. Just look through the sections a little bit, set it on PDF, and you'll be all set. The billing statements, we want you to send all 3 billing statements as one document. Don't send them off, a separate PDF every single page. That won't work on our end when we're processing it. It'll slow everything down. Somebody in our office will have to go ahead and convert, 20 pages into just one document. However, when you're doing the LOA and the LOR, those need to be separate documents because they get sent off in different directions. The LOA, it goes to the utility company. Now, the LOR, which is probably the most important of all these documents, it goes to the energy suppliers. So let me talk a little bit about the LOR. When I was out selling, I would sit across the desk from a client, and when I first got started, I was representing one company. So here I am, I'm there, one company, one price in a deregulated market. I know my client, they're smart. They know that deregulation has competition, so that means there's other people that have other prices. So number one, it takes longer to do because he's going to go try to gather pricing from multiple people. So I always sat there knowing that I'm going to win some and I'm going to lose some. And when Joe Mittiga, my partner, and I, when we started Avion, we wanted to create a system where we could win 100% of the time. And if you're listening to this recording, just know, I know that right now your ears perked up a little bit and you said, no, wait a minute, you're talking about winning some, losing some. I don't like that. But winning every time, what do I got to do to win every time? I want to do that. Well, the letter of representation is the magic piece of paper that lets you win every time. What it does, you have to understand, there are energy suppliers have multiple sales agents that get pricing from them. It could be their employee, someone that they hire to be a salesperson for that company. They're out there selling. They're out being that guy like I was, one company, one price. There, other people who might represent, as independent contractors, might represent a couple companies. But there's nobody out there that has this vast network of energy suppliers that we've put together. I signed another contract last week, so we're up to 73 now. And I've got 7 or 8 in the works being negotiated, so that list continues to grow. But listen, if we want to get pricing from all these energy suppliers, we have to go and present to them this document, this letter of representation, so that they know what the client wants. The client wants pricing presented from Avion. And when we present that to them, well, what it does is it shuts down their own sales department, who probably is where the vast majority of these issues arise, because they're not going to release pricing from multiple sources. They're not going to have their salesperson show up at your client's office and tell them that they'll sell them electricity for a certain price, and there you are sitting across the desk and you're selling electricity for some different price from the same supplier. That won't ever happen when you have this letter of representation signed. We take that, give it to the energy suppliers right away. Everything then comes into the brokerage department. The only pricing ever released to the customer is through Avion, and so it's really important. And it's really simple to do. Whenever I've had conversations with clients, I've always asked them, do you want us to do our job 100%, or do you want us to just do the job halfway? Well, of course they want you to do the job 100%. They say that's what this letter of representation is for. Now, the one that is physically in your back office right now is certainly fine to use, but we're in the process of simplifying it a little bit, so there's less choices. The one that's there is designed to deal with everything 100%, and we're going to take some of those minute choices out and make it easy for everyone just to go through this. There's basically, in the shaded box, there's 4 different categories that we want to either pick yes or no about an authorization, what the company is authorizing us to do, yes or no about service locations, yes or no about the time period, and yes or no about the sole source. And then, of course, there's a place at the bottom for the company to sign and, again, fill this out completely. It's this very similar information that you'll find on the LOA, but the LOA is being sent to the utility company. The LOR is being sent to the energy supply company. They're going to two different places, so you have to fill it out. But, you know, when you're talking about the authorizations, let's run through these and talk about them very briefly. They're going to authorize Avion to obtain price quotes for electricity or authorize Avion to obtain price quotes for natural gas. They can select yes for both of those. That would be fine. Service locations. There's a spot to check yes for all service locations of the client. Of course, that's preferable, but there could be some reason why a client, if you have a large client who has 350 locations around the country, you know, they may want you to go get pricing in a specific state or in a specific utility. So this document gives them the choice to authorize us to do that either everywhere or by a certain state or by a certain utility. And it gives you a blank to fill in the state or the utility company. Also the time period for a specific time period that begins on and ends on. Certainly, you know, don't ever do something that's only, you know, a week or two. You know, that should be, if they're wanting a specific time period, it should be for at least, you know, a couple years, 3, 4, 5 years or something like that. Or a continuing letter of representation that begins on and remains in effect until withdrawn by the client. So the client is not bound to some never-ending contract. It's just gives the supply companies that we're dealing with getting prices that somebody there says, oh, no, I'm working that client. You know, it's how salespeople are always doing that. Maybe they haven't called on the client for 2 or 3 years, but now all of a sudden somebody comes up, wants to take that client away from them. They're all of a sudden working on it. So this just tells them who the client wants to supply pricing for them. Now, and the last one to check off there is sole source. That's really the key thing of this whole document. Avion will be our sole source of representation for the services selected in that specified time period. They can check that. Or for that instance when, you know, the decision maker, the boss, the CEO, the owner of the company, he's got a brother-in-law that works for one of the energy supply companies, and you know, even though he wants you to go do all this work, he just has to let his brother-in-law, you know, get pricing from ABC Supply Company. So if that's the case, there's a box there. It says Avion will selectively represent the client for the services selected in the specified time period, obtaining bids for energy consumption from all sources excluding the specific energy suppliers listed here. Then you write in that company, and then that company is not going to give pricing to us. They're going to send it through the other source, which would be the brother-in-law, and then, you know, the company gets their pricing. So that's all this document does, is it clears up any misunderstandings that an energy supplier might have about who actually is going to take pricing to the customer, and then we're able to win 100% of the time. This document is probably the document I would have, you know, on the top of my list. And after explaining to the client what it is we do, and he can't get that anywhere else, you know, clients, you know, with confidence all the time sign up for what we do. And after 6 years in business, into our 7th year now, we've got a 91% retention rate. Clients have us do this over and over and over and over again, and they absolutely love what we do. So, Rick, I think I've covered those documents in enough detail today. Do you have any follow-up questions or want me to drill down a little bit more about anything?
Just the last thing I would say, Jim, this is excellent, just outstanding information. But the last thing, before you hit send from your email to Avion Energy, your grouping of the documents, if I have this straight, we're taking all the bill copies and combining them in order of the last 3 months on one PDF document. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then each separate back office document, all of what we just described here, the RFP, the LOA, and the LOR, those documents should be in separate PDFs. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And the reason is those 4 things are going to 4 different places in some cases, or multiple places, correct?
That is right. Yep, that's correct. Helps us speed things up in the office here.
Sure, and it also it could very well affect how many people bid on these particular deals that agents are submitting. Wouldn't that be true as well?
That is true, yes.
Okay, so the better the information, in all likelihood, the better opportunity for best pricing.
That's correct.
All right, so I think we're getting it, and money likes speed, and obviously if the brokers on the Avion side of things are getting all this information, kind of buttoned up and put together like that, that's going to turn around and cause things to happen faster for the agents. So excited that we got to share this information. This is going to become a cornerstone recording, I believe, that everyone can refer back to. And there's more exciting things coming at the first of the year as well. So I appreciate you taking the time, Jim.
Yeah, Rick, I probably would have maybe after this we've recorded all this, it might have been good to mention at the very beginning if sales agents who are listening to this to have these documents in front of them, because I'm looking at them referring to specific things. If you go back and listen to this again with the documents in front of you, it'll probably even make more sense to you.
Absolutely. Great advice. Well, once again, very much appreciate you taking the time here today, Jim. Hope it was valuable information for everybody on the call, and we'll have this posted at bidpoint.co shortly. So thank you, everyone, for your time, and have an awesome rest of your day.